Well, here we are. We have reached the story of the robber bridegroom. So this is a story which really does have an awful lot of the elements of full-on horror stories. So let's dive straight in, and here we go. There was once a miller who had a very beautiful daughter, and of course, like all fathers, he wanted to make a good marriage for her. And a suitor presented himself, who seemed to be, if not rich, certainly quite comfortably off. And he seemed like the kind of man that the miller would be proud to call his son-in-law. And so the two became engaged. But the miller's daughter didn't really love her betrothed in the way that she knew a bride should love her groom. In fact, she had real misgivings about this. And there came a day when the young man said, "Come and visit me on Sunday. Come and visit me in my house deep in the forest. I will lay a trail of ash for you so that you can find your way." And so the young woman set out, but she took with her a bag of peas and a bag of lentils. And as she followed the ash path through the forest, she sprinkled peas and she sprinkled lentils along the path. And she reached a house and let herself in. There was no one there, but a bird in a cage saying, "Turn back, turn back, turn away. It isn't safe here." But, and this is a common motif of course, in all horror stories, there's always someone saying, "Don't do this," and of course the protagonist ignores the advice and carries on. And the miller's daughter went in every room in the house, which was dark and cold. As she went down into the cellar, where an old woman was sitting alone. And the old woman said to the maid, "Flee for your life, my dear. You've stumbled into the house of robbers and murderers." But at that moment, they heard voices and knew that the gang had returned home. So the old woman helped the maid to hide behind a large barrel in the corner. And from there, she could see that the murderers had brought with them a young maiden. They were all drunk, but the young maid was more drunk than any of the men. And they gave her more wine, and they gave her so much wine that her heart broke in two. And they took their knives to the young maiden, and they cut her body and covered it in salt. And one of them saw that there was a gold ring on the maiden's little finger, but the ring was stuck and wouldn't come off. So the robber took a knife and cut off her finger, and as he did so, it jumped up and landed behind the barrel where the miller's daughter was hiding. And the robber said, "Oh, let me go and find the ring." But the old woman said, "Oh, leave it till after you've eaten. The ring's not going to go anywhere." And because they were all hungry by then and anxious to try the flesh of a young woman, they all set to eating. But the old woman was clever, and the old woman was cunning, and the old woman had put a sleeping potion into the wine that the murderers drank. So before long they were all asleep, in a potion-induced sleep from which they would not wake for some time. So the miller's daughter and the old woman escaped from the house. And as they walked out into the moonlit night, the peas and the lentils that the maid had scattered had begun to sprout. And so they followed the trail back through the forest to the mill. And the maiden explained to her father everything that had happened. The plans for the wedding had already been made, so the wedding celebrations went ahead. And all the miller's family were invited to a party at the mill. And because it was what people did then, everyone told a story. And it came to the bride's turn, and the bridegroom said to her, "My love, tell a story." So the miller's daughter said, "I had a dream. I had this strange dream that I walked through the forest until I came to a dark house. And there was a bird in a cage that told me not to go in. Oh, my dear, it was only a dream. And I dreamed that I went down into the cellar and I heard men coming, so I hid behind a barrel. Oh, my dear, it was only a dream. And as I hid behind a barrel, I saw the men come in with the young maiden, and they killed her, and they cut her body to pieces. Oh, my dear, it was only a dream. And one of the murderers cut off her finger, with the ring still in it, and it landed in my lap. Oh, my dear, it was only a dream." And then the maiden pulled out of her pocket the finger with the ring still round it. And the bridegroom and the rest of the murderers fell silent, and they were seized by the wedding guests and taken to the magistrates. And I think you know what happened to them. Maybe it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how far back you go, we people have always liked that little bit of spine-chilling fear that goes with films like Silence of the Lambs. Maybe what we're not quite so comfortable with is the reality of events like From Wall Street. But there you are. Of course there's a dark side to the Brothers Grimm stories, because there's a dark side to humanity. But hold on to the knowledge that, of course, justice prevails. Well, at least it does in stories. There are some funny and more light-hearted stories coming up. Take care, and I hope to see you again soon.